Thank you, Your Worship. Is it okay if I remove my mask?
Yes, while you're the speaker there, that's acceptable. The standard that we have here exceeds the provincial health requirements with the dividers and people wearing masks, but when you're the active speaker, you are absolutely welcome to remove your mask.
Thank you so much. Obviously, a very important debate going on here tonight. Peter Qualls, 1030 29th Street East. Mayor and Council, the lack of accessibility, especially for those with mobility impairments for residents of 29th Street East, has been well documented. The report dated January the 4th, 2022, submitted by District Transportation staff, contains nothing to address the accessibility problems. Handy Dart taxis, healthcare providers, grocery and pharmaceutical deliveries can no longer legally stop on sections of 29th Street East. Residents, actual humans, especially seniors with mobility impairments, face the risk of isolation and being unable to age in place due to family and friends facing challenges accessing their homes. Residents that now rely on parking access via lanes have the potential to become stranded during snow and ice events, as the current district policy is not to plow or salt lanes. The bike lanes were installed over 2 years ago, and the most recent count taken by the district on the bike lanes in the 1,000 block of 29th Street East was extremely low. The count was taken during Bike to Work Week, and as an example, one day showed a count of 3, not 50, not 300, 3. Transportation staff have confirmed that they could not determine if this number of 3 included delivery vans, which constantly use the bike lanes for stopping in, creating an unsafe situation for cyclists. District staff have blamed the low usage on COVID-19 restrictions. However, the bike count for Lynn Valley Road during the same time period shows high usage. Consolidating the bike lanes to one side of 29th Street East and reinstalling stopping parking on the opposite side would address the problems for all stakeholders and would be a cost-effective compromise. The width of the consolidated bike lane would be approximately the same width of sections of the bike lane on Highway 1 between Westview and Capilano Road, which was approved by the Ministry of Transportation and Health Cycling. District transportation staff are not recommending the other option of parking pockets on 29th Street East, stating that vehicles would be required to pull in and out of traffic by crossing over the cycling lane, creating a dangerous situation for cyclists. This makes no sense at all. The current design, which requires backing down over the cycling lane, is far more dangerous than pulling into a parallel parking pocket. District staff have also proposed the option of concrete barriers separating the bike lane from vehicle traffic. As a cyclist, concrete barriers would be a welcome safety modification over the existing plastic delineators. Improving safety on a single bi-directional bike lane on 29th Street East would be prudent use of taxpayers' money, especially during a time of record high property assessments and an election year for mayor and council. Residents fully support sustainable forms of transportation like cycling to reduce GHG emissions and promote a healthier lifestyle. Vehicles driving around the neighborhood searching for a safe place to stop do not reduce GHG emissions. To be clear, this is not about storage of private vehicles on public roads. This is about the basic right of accessibility for residents and improved safety for cyclists.
May I ask you to draw to a close?
District staff have openly admitted that they have learned from their mistakes on 29th Street East and are applying these lessons learned to other infrastructure projects such as Lynn Valley Road Active Transportation Plan. On behalf of numerous residents of 29th Street East, we respectfully request Mayor and Council to direct staff to apply the lessons they have learned and rectify the mistakes on 29th Street East. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coles. And I did also want to say some of the statistics and vehicle uses were complicated because we were in the middle of the highway improvement project as well. And there was an additional number of people that were running through the community. We all saw it as we were going. I commuted through 29th from the district hall. And so it was a tricky time to collect normal baseline statistics through that space as well. But thank you very much for your comments. Thank you, Mr. Carney, for your report, and to everybody who helped produce it. I think, with seeing the usage statistics, which I think were not what was anticipated, there has to be an option C that's genuinely talked about here. And I know that it puts staff in an awkward position to produce options for a workshop that are in a direct collision with the current council position on things. But I think after we've seen how the space has been used and what's been given up in order to be able to use it, I think we have to have a genuine discussion about from Tempe Glen East, removing the delineators off the south side of the road. It's an area where cyclists can readily keep up with traffic. If we're talking about 54 cyclists in a day, we're talking about 25, 26, 27 people that may be going eastbound in that corridor. The neighbors have had to put up with a tremendous burden of not having the flexibility in and around their properties. If you're on a flanking street, you may be able to easily accommodate it on a side street, but if you're mid-block, it's a fair imposition, and I don't think that it's worth it for the volume of cycling that's going through that corridor. And so, you know what, I really think we need to have a talk about removing the delineators off the south side of the road from Tempe Glen East. And while I don't have an interest in it becoming long-term storage of cars, you know, the unregulated 72-hour parking stalls, I do think that it should be reserved for a mixture of medium-term parking, maybe 4 hours, and drop-off locations, places for people to be able to receive services that can come in and drop off. But I don't think that the numbers justify the imposition on the neighborhood in that area. So I think we also need to talk about that option 3. I don't want to see any more concrete east of Tempe Glen at this point. And I think that we should still be flexible until we can sort out what the long-term vision is for this space. But I'm not talking about removing anything west of Tempe Glen. We've set that up. It came at great cost. We're going to have to accommodate people in other ways through that area, but we can make our job a whole lot easier if we take the entire eastern portion and give back some flexibility on the road space. So I'd love to hear other members of council's views on that specifically. Councillor Muri, your comments.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I'm wondering why we wouldn't have just offered the option from the original report just over 3 years ago when council made the decision to not follow the staff recommendation and to protect both sides of the road, even though the protecting both sides of the road was never an option that was brought to the community for consideration. So I'm wondering why we didn't just go back to that original recommendation. Like why has staff changed all of a sudden?
Okay, I don't know that staff was bound by the former decisions. These are the recommendations. Mr. Ono, do you have a response?
No, I'm just talking about the original staff recommendation. What?
Yeah.
Yes. To say hi.
Yes, Your Worship. So the original staff recommendation was intended to be a temporary situation while we... So there was a 2-year period of consultation with residents, and we knew that, and there was some data collection regarding parking demand for that very, very eastern end of 29th, nearer to Lynn Valley Road. And so the original recommendation by staff on May 6th of 2019 was meant to be a temporary situation while we tried to work through the details of options and transition. But there's no doubt, Your Worship, from what we know about bicycling facilities, that having parked cars alongside a shared motor vehicle and bicycle facility is actually less safe for the cyclist, because the cyclist can be doored, the cyclist can get pinched in by vehicles trying to overtake and so on. So it wasn't a preferred technical solution, Your Worship. So I hope that answers Councillor Muri's question.
Thank you, Mr. Ono. Yeah, so I the issue of safety is always paramount, and the issue of giving choices to people. It has been a challenging issue for the residents of 29th. Certainly with the snowfall that we had, those that access their properties by a lane, sorry, gotta let the dog out. Those that access their property by a lane have become very challenged because we weren't even plowing the lanes, and they couldn't access. So I just, I just think as Mayor Little that we should just go back to removing one side and allowing a middle ground, certainly based on the numbers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Forbes, your comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. My comment is very similar to Councillor Muri's. I've talked to quite a few of the people on 29th, and I would be in favor of a compromise where one side is parking and one side is the bicycle lanes. And the width of those lanes would be the same if we combined them both bike lanes on one side. The width of that for the bicyclists would be the same as the width of the lane from Westview to Capilano Road. So it's certainly doable. So I like what you suggested, Mayor, but I also, when we talk about this, could we also then go one step farther just to have a discussion about the possibility of having the south side for parking and the north side for bicyclists? And again, it's mainly because of the numbers. I have the numbers in front of me, and as you say, I think the highest in September and October of this year, the highest traffic on their highest number was on September the 24th. So we were still in good weather, and it was on a Friday, and it was 62. So if that might be 31 and a half riders. Anyway, I just think that the numbers don't dictate it right now, and we can always go to bike lanes on both sides of the highway or both sides of the road at some point in the future when the numbers dictate it. But right now, I think it would be nice if we could include a discussion on the parking on one side. Nothing's forever, so let's try to accommodate everybody or as many people as we can. Thank you.
Councillor Forbes, Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you to the people who have spoken prior to me. I'm not going to repeat much that has been said tonight about the need to create a system, a biking system. And I think for us to be talking about the numbers now is not fair because this is just one component of what we envision to be a larger system. We have a vision as to how bike lanes can transform transportation in the district, and with e-bikes and other, with e-bikes and other bikes, and we think this vision is warranted. So suffice it to say that I support the staff recommendations. I think we should continue with these bike lanes. I think we should continue to invest in bike lanes, and we should continue with the vision of creating a safe biking system across the North Shore, which I believe will have much, much greater utilization once complete than this current section of bike lanes has at the moment. That's my belief. So I do support the staff recommendation dealing with the alternative option of replacing delineators with concrete barriers. The Lynn Valley design, I'm open to that if the perception is that that's going to create a better system. I'm also open to any suggestions as to how we can alleviate the parking issue while maintaining these bike lanes. I think it would be a great mistake from my point of view for this council to make a decision that signals any kind of retreat from our ongoing commitment to these bike lanes. But is there some compromise somewhere that alleviates the parking challenges? I'm open to that, and I look forward to hearing from members of the public on that issue. As to the specific points that were raised, I have visited the area, walked the area. I don't favor the opening of the lane. I see the challenges with the side street parking. I see this challenges with the drop-off zones, particularly in view of the cost. But as I say, I'm open to hearing from any members of the public as to what a solution might be for their parking problems, so long as we maintain these bike lanes, and more importantly, maintain our commitment to the vision of an integrated, safe biking system across the North Shore. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hanson. Next speaker out is Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I'm heartened by Councillor Hanson's words on this topic, and perhaps it's the number of times that I invited him, somewhat persuaded him to come on Bike to Work Week with Council. I know Council, when he brought his first bicycle out, it didn't make it the whole way, the bicycle itself. But I think that actually having the experience, the visceral experience of riding a bike in infrastructure that is, we're calling it a compromise, but we should talk clearly about what the compromise is. It's safety. It is 100% safety. And, Mr. Ono talks about a shared bicycle / vehicle lane next to car parking. It's actually the most dangerous type of facility for someone that's on a bicycle. So that is the compromise. That is what we're calling a middle ground to take away what is now a safe facility for people riding their bikes and put them in the most dangerous situation for someone riding a bike. That does not seem like a middle ground to me. So I wouldn't support the removal of that. It's hard to come up for an analogy for someone that hasn't experienced, doesn't have that visceral experience. But I could say, as a driver, I do drive sometimes. I still have my license. Imagine that you had a road that you drove to get to your destination. And that was a regular road like every other road. It was paved, there was signs and lights. But on the way back, you had to drive on the train tracks, sharing it with active freight trains. Would that be a middle ground? Would that be a safe route that you would choose to get to where you're going every day for whatever purpose you would? No. People don't drive on train tracks with active train travel. That is the analogy when you're in a shared facility next to parked cars as a person riding a bike. So it's not a middle ground, and it's not a compromise when we're speaking about safety, and we've got this vision to provide safe routes. The numbers on this facility will get better when the routes get better, when there's more destinations, when more areas are protected, and people have people of all ages, yes, people with their kids, people commuting to work, people going over to Lonsdale or over to Edgemont. When the routes are there, then the numbers will rise. That's been shown locally in Vancouver, in other bike facilities all over the place. So I don't think this, a proposal to remove any of the bollards or one lane or add parking is a compromise, and it's definitely not a middle ground. And so I won't support that. I'd be interested to, even removing the bollards, it puts, if anyone has ever driven or ridden the bicycle along Esplanade, you will know that when people park in the bike lane, which is what we're talking about here, allowing people to park in the bike lane, it creates the situation which I think Jasper mentioned on Lynn Valley Road, where someone riding a bicycle has to then merge into traffic, and which creates a conflict. It creates additional risk and additional safety concerns for people. And I think my only question here, and I think I saw it in the staff report, and Mr. Carney, maybe you can ask this, in the presentation here, we say that parking, the parking, what are we calling the parking, the pullouts that they create additional risk, additional safety concerns for people when they're riding their bikes. Why would we be doing them on Lynn Valley Road if they are creating conflicts? So I'll leave that question there. We've already talked about Lynn Valley Road, but I'd agree with Councillor Hanson's comment. We have a vision. We want to create a safe network for people when they choose to bike. Not everyone's going to bike all the time. Some people might bike just down to Lynn Valley for groceries along this bike network. Some people may commute. Some people may do more and some may not at all. But our vision is a safe and connected bike network. And it's supported by our plans and our policies and our goals. And when we implement that vision, the community that we will have and our residents will be safer and they will be healthier. And they will have more options to get around. And so I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Curren.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the comments and presentation from staff, the comments from Councillor Bond and Councillor Hanson about this longer term vision that we can't retreat from. I like that language, Councillor Hanson. I think that's, maybe I got that correctly. But it is a vision of a different way. And I see it and I want to be part of it and I want to, I want it to happen. And so I think like we have to continue to do that. And, you know, we throw around numbers. These are actual human beings. These are people's lives. They are not just data points. And every person should be able to move around the community outside of a car in as safe a way as possible. And because we've built systems that are incompatible with human health and environmental health, now we have to change them all, and we don't have a lot of time because we haven't taken any action over the many, many decades that we could have done it in a more, in a slower fashion. And now we don't. And so these changes that have to happen will be challenging, but when we get to them, I mean, imagine being able to have that option. It's better for everyone. So I think these decisions are not taken lightly by anyone on council, but I do hold fast to that vision of a better future. And I certainly just want to comment on the cycling infrastructure. When I go to another community that has invested in cycling infrastructure, I'm glad that they've done that for me and for other people as well. And so I think, you know, people who may be riding in our community, who may live in other communities, we ride in their communities too, like we need to share. And I think every community hopefully is committed to 21st century solutions to some of the largest challenges we've ever faced in the shortest time frame. So I think that level of urgency needs to always be there. And this is a mode shift. I mean, we talk about mode shift. This is one way to do that. And it is going to eventually, hopefully, be everywhere. And I know, Mayor Little, I have to bring this up every time, is, you know, Mount Seymour Parkway, riding along a freeway where I don't know if staff can report on the speed limits, but I would say easily 70 miles an hour, unprotected. It's actually absurd. To consider that that's not a safe route. So when people talk about what people use and don't use, it's because we haven't built it yet. So if we build it there and we complete it and we commit to it and we have that strong vision, we can make this happen. And I think other communities are certainly on board. There is a big change happening, and I think it's exciting and it's long overdue, and we've got to keep going.
Thank you, Councillor Curren. Your American is showing it's 60 kilometers an hour, but you're right. The flow of traffic along the parkway is probably about 70 kilometers an hour, not 70 miles an hour.
Miles, kilometers, you know. Thank you for that correction. 70 kilometers.
Thank you, Councillor Back.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you to Councillor Hanson, Bond, and Curren. I do agree with all of the comments that you've made. I think when we look at the 29th Street corridor, overall, what's been created here in the last couple of years is a far better use of road space, and it has provided a much safer connection for people who are walking, cycling, or rolling. And I think that it is about the long-term vision, as we've talked about, was a theme with the last item as well. As Councillor Bond has kind of pointed out, you build it and they will come. But I think we do have to give it time. This is just one piece of our cycling network. But I think it's an important piece. I've certainly spoken to some of the residents on 29th, and I understand some of the concerns that they've had. And I do support, where staff have tried to accommodate some of the issues that they brought forward, things like the driveway variances, and looking at some other ways that we can help to address some of their concerns. But I wasn't elected to remove bike lanes. I think we are on the right path to creating, a long-term future here that's going to help us achieve some of our broader goals in the district. And we need to stick to that plan, as has been highlighted by the speakers before me. So I think we have the right pieces in place here in 29th. I'm not interested in making any major changes at all, and certainly nothing that's going to make the corridor any less safe for cyclists, because I think we've made some big changes here. We need to give it time now and let the broader network get built out. But appreciate all of the work that staff have done in going back and taking a look at this.
Yeah, just speaking a second time here, I get the rhetoric. People want to sound absolutely unequivocally in support of cycling, but at the same time, you can't say we want to wait and see what's going to happen and say, I will never back down on cycling. That's not reasonable. Either you are assessing the situation on an ongoing basis, determining whether it's working, whether it's not working, and seeing whether or not there are other better ways to address the issue. And to do that, you have to accept that at some point you may remove a bike lane. You may move it to another location. You may do something different in the neighborhood based on the demand and based on the risk. I don't like either option A or B, because all it does is puts risk back on the road, but also doesn't address many of the concerns expressed by the community. And the risk that it puts back on the road is at a phenomenal cost, $50,000 a lay-by on those spaces on the north side of the road. So I don't know where we go on these matters, Council. If you actually genuinely want to receive the feedback, receive the statistics from staff, then you have to accept that you're going to be making decisions informed by that. And so saying that you will never remove a bike lane, you will never reassess whether we're doing the right thing or not within the system, what's the point of staff even reporting back on the success of the program? What's the point of the staff ever reporting back on whether it's actually functioning and serving the community? Because you've already made the decision that you're not going to adjust how you're going to approach the problem. And I find that to be an absolutely untenable position. And I get that people want to sound unequivocally in support of cycling throughout the community. I want to be supporting cycling in the community. But at the same time, you still have to be able to take the new information that comes at you and make the decision as to whether you're still on the right course. And so I find, maybe I'm having a bit of a visceral response to this as well for Mr. Cost Benefit, but I just find that that approach, saying you're going to consider the impact, saying you're going to wait and see whether this becomes a more central piece when people choose to use it before, it is disingenuous if you also hold the position in the community that you will never remove a bike lane, you will never alter a transportation plan, you will never try to find a way to better address the concerns of that community. So I find it very puzzling. Maybe you're not getting the emails that I'm getting from the community about the impact this is having on families in the 29th Street corridor, but we definitely are going to be talking about this a lot going into the next election. Next speaker is Councillor Muri.
Yeah, I find this so puzzling. I really do. And it's not about not wanting to create protection for cyclists. You know, Councillor Curren, you talk about these are people's lives. These aren't data points. Well, you know, talk to the residents on 29th, some of which can't access their second story suite from their back lanes with their parents that are in wheelchairs. My dad's in a wheelchair right now, 91. And access, I've learned so much about access because he can't walk anymore. And so that's not a data point. That's somebody's life. And taking both sides of the parking off 29th for a relatively small amount of people right now with a parallel road just down the street has affected their lives. And I've never seen in all my years as a councillor an issue that was made by council that has gone on this long, that has percolated this long, because I get calls and letters from people still. I don't know if you're not seeing them. Councillor Back, you said that you weren't elected to take out bike lanes. Well, you also weren't elected to make decisions without consultation when you were receiving that consultation. You can't receive some consultation. You can't receive some consultation on some things.
I'm just going to encourage all members of council. There's no reason to make this personal amongst ourselves, but let's focus on the issue at hand. But so I hear your concern, Councillor Bond. Councillor Muri, if you can just return to your comments, but try not to make it personal, I'd appreciate that.
Well, we go through we spend all this time and all this money, and we're doing all this consultation on phase 1 and phase 2 on Lynn Valley Road. And are we going to listen to any of the consultation? I mean, honestly, let's make decisions and let's save the community a whole bunch of stress and just say, we're not going to do consultation anymore because we know best and we're going to do this. And we don't want to look at compromises or middle grounds. And if things don't work, we're just going to leave them anyway. Because I don't think that's why, I don't think that's how you run in an election and become successful if you're not going to listen to the people that you're asking to vote for you. I mean, listening to the community is part of our job. It's a major part of our job. They are the shareholders of this community. They're the taxpayers. We need to listen to them. And it may not always agree with how we feel about things, but we have to listen to them. It's our job. And we need to respond to them as well. And they certainly have not said, take out all the bike lanes on 29th. They're saying, could we have some parking back? And I'll tell you, even the consultants for the OCP, after COVID hit, and everybody was shopping online and Amazon was delivering and Skip the Dishes was created. And all of these delivery services, the consultants actually recommended in the transportation plan for the official community plan, they said, oh, and you guys have got to start creating parking for these delivery trucks. Like, let's not worry about our residents. Now we've got to make, room for all of the businesses that are wanting to come in. And they were actually recommending that we should create more parking. Because right now, a lot of places, they just stop in the middle of the road and get out and go and deliver what they need and then get back in their car. So that's not dangerous? I'd say that's pretty dangerous. So I don't understand why it's always one way or another. It's never in the middle. I don't get it. Keep the bike lane protected, put a cement barrier in, going uphill. Downhill, go into the city of North Vancouver where you all ride and see how many streets have multiple ways of riding and driving and walking in the streets of the city of North Vancouver. They are everywhere and they're all different. On 13th, you can, you ride on the curb lane and then there's a row of parking. There's the multi-use paths down Jones and Mahan. There's the delineators. There's whole lanes off Grand Boulevard. Like the city has a mixture of ways that you can, it's not all the same. It's not all protected by a cement barrier. When you're going down Westview, it's delineators. It's one of the busiest roads in the on the North Shore. Westview down to Marine Drive is one of the busiest roads, and the city has maintained delineators on that road into a major transportation corridor. How can they do it? And we have an extra wide road on 29 with very low numbers, and we cannot go back to a middle ground and return one row of parking? Like, I don't get it. I don't get this at all. Like, if this had been an issue in front of the last election, what would you be saying? I don't think you'd be looking at people and going, well, you know what, sorry, we don't care about your issues. We're going to do it anyway. Right? Why don't we care? Why does one group trump another? Why does it have to be like that? These are all our neighbors and our residents.
Councillor, I think you've made your points very well. I'm going to go on to Councillor Forbes now.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Muri said a lot of things I was going to say. I have to say, this pushback that a few of us get all the time, I want the bicyclists to be safe. I want the motorcycle or the automobiles and transit to be safe. And I want the community to be able to have access to their home. And that goes for disabled, that goes for the healthcare workers that have to come and take care of them, and they can't stop for 15 minutes. They need longer. And it's the deliveries as well, and cabs, and some of those people won't park a block away and then walk back. They just won't. So some of those people are missing out on some of their services. And again, I've spoken to a 90-year-old woman, 90 or 92, and she can't go up her back lane in Tempe Heights because it's like a 45 degree. And she has she needs some help walking, and she can't get in her front door either because of what we've done in front of her house. So what is she supposed to do? Park 2 blocks away and use a walker or ask somebody to help her? And then because her lane is so steep, she couldn't do that in the winter months. And the house then has like 20 stairs to go up. So in the back, where she's ground level at the front, but she can't even get to her own front door. So yes, we have a long-term vision to have bicycle lanes, but I come back to what I'm saying. If you don't like the pullouts, then let's try to compromise, and we put both bike lanes on the north side of 29th, and we have the south side as parking. That's a compromise. And like I said, it's been measured by that if we put the 2 lanes together on the north side, that's the same amount of room for bicyclists that we have on the highway. And if we've only got this many bicyclists, I'm sure the odd time they'll pass each other right now. So nobody's arguing with a long-term vision. But again, I repeat, compromise. I want to keep safety. I want access for residents, and because the numbers are low right now, we can do that, and we can change, like I said before. If the traffic and the bicyclist traffic changes, then we may relook at this and change it, and we may have to take both sides of the road back. I don't know. But at least for now, it's just not working. And when you say give it time, it's been 2 years. So, we've been giving it time. I know the first year was COVID, but we promised those citizens we'd come back and listen to them after 1 year. And we didn't do it because the first year was COVID. So now we're back listening to them now. And all I can say is I don't understand why we can never have compromise here. There's 2 sides to the road. Everybody can have a little bit of the road. And I just want to say one last thing, and I know it's already been said, but I feel really strongly about this. We were elected to represent the taxpayers. We need to listen to them. We don't dictate to them. We can talk to them. We can try and advise them about what's better in their neighborhood. But in the end, we need to listen to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Forbes. Councillor Beck, your comments?
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I do feel the need to respond a little bit. I feel like I've been attacked a little bit by my council colleagues here tonight. So I want to just make a couple of points. Well, one is that I do listen to the community, and I'm certainly, I think, one of the more accessible councillors. And I have certainly listened to the people of 29th and heard their concerns, Councillor Forbes. And what I want to say is that we are elected to serve the greater community. And while I understand that there are, some specific concerns from homeowners living on 29th Street, I can appreciate those. And I can support doing what we can to accommodate. And that's what staff have done. They've accommodated where they can in terms of allowing more parking on private property. They've come back with this report where they don't recommend a number of the things that have been talked about. So I just want to acknowledge that I do hear the concerns of residents. I have talked to many of them, but I think for the greater good of the whole community, when we look at this whole corridor, it's safer for everybody. And I don't feel that we need to make changes to a facility here that's going to make it less safe for people who are cycling. So, yeah, I just wanted to address some of the criticism. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beck. Councillor Bond.
Thanks, Mayor Little. I think that if we're going to remove one side of parking, or if that's what a majority of council would like, the whole bike lane should just be removed because it's pointless. It's pointless to have a bike lane on a protected bike lane on one side of the road and then have nothing on the other. You're just inviting people into a more dangerous situation. You're setting people up for failure on their commute to ride in a safe way in one direction, and then to be put in the most dangerous situation possible, riding a bicycle on the road in the other direction. So I don't think there is a half ground, as Mr. Stuart said on this one. And I think the reason why staff are not recommending a two-way bicycle facility on one side of the road is because it's actually against engineering best practices because of left turn conflicts. If you can imagine, you're riding this way on the road. I think Mr. Carney could probably explain that better than me, why there's not two-lane bicycle facilities on one side of a road. Basically, you have cars overtaking people, not expecting a bicyclist to come up on their left, and then there's a turning conflict, which creates a very dangerous situation for the person riding the bike when the person driving does not expect them to be there. And just to say, I think there are some really good situations where we might consider removing a bike lane. In particular, in this instance in particular, if the city of North Vancouver created a wide protected pathway through Tempe Heights Park, connecting the kind of informal gravel path, I think that's 25th Street, into Tempe Heights. If they created a wide and lit path through that park beside the highway, and then this council was interested and willing to make significant changes to the road along Viney, along Link, to connect into Tempe Heights, to create a safe network and slow vehicles in there and remove parking conflicts, then that would probably be an alternative that would avoid the hill on 29th, as well as providing a safe facility for people to get between Lynn Valley and Lonsdale, and then on to Edgemont. So there are situations where I think we can have better routes. In this case, it relies on the city of North Vancouver in particular, and it relies on council having the same conversation that we're having on 29th with the people on Viney and with the people on Link and the people on that section between Viney and Macefield, on Macefield between Viney and Link. So I think we have to have that conversation. Right now it's on 29th because the infrastructure, that's where we put the infrastructure to take advantage of a paving project, if everyone remembers, which the repaving of 29th was actually I think the majority cost in the $1.5 million of the project cost. But there are better options, and there are alternate options when we get around, perhaps in another 10 or 15 years, coming back to this. or sooner should council choose to make this the priority compared to, say, other more important links as others have mentioned in the town centers along Marine Drive, Mountain Highway.
Thank you, Councillor Bond, for your comments. And again, if I contributed to making the debate a little bit more personal, I apologize. Always remember Jack Loups would always say, you know, we can disagree, but we can't be disagreeable in the conduct of this job. Otherwise, we lose the confidence in the community. And so, so I don't want to be contributing to that. However, I have some strong feelings on some of these matters, and so I do get I do get a little heated on it. At this point, Council, we do have some speakers that have signed up to speak, and so I did want to make sure that we had an opportunity for members of the public who would really stuck it out with us. I'm sorry that this is taken till 10 o'clock, but I hope you found that people have had an informed debate on the matter. At this point, I'm going to invite Peter Coles to come and speak at the microphone.
Thank you.
Okay, Council, I think we've had a very good discussion on this. I think versus the beginning of the night, I would say that members of staff probably have a much clearer view on what the opinions are of council on these respective matters. But that doesn't always make a clear consensus on items. So I'm going to go to you. Is Mr. Stuart, are you still on the line?
Regretfully so.
I haven't done this to you in a very long time, Mr. Stuart, but I am going to ask you to recap what you think you've heard here tonight just before we head home.
Well, I think on Lynn Valley, there's a real need to make sure that we've done the right kind of consultation to make sure that the community is aware of what's being proposed before we move too quickly. So that's pretty clear. On 29th, I think there's some sensitivity to make, providing they don't decrease safety. So we're going to consider all the comments that have been made, and there are many diverse views, of course, but we'll be coming back to council on possibly some changes that could be made to 29th. It might not be acceptable to everybody on council, but it might be acceptable to some in terms of trying to find that compromise. There's no question there's been a real issue with access to properties that have been caused by the 29th design. I think staff have recognized that. So we'll be coming back to council with some ideas around how we can improve that. And as I said, we'll on Lynn Valley, before we are proceeding too quickly, we'll have some discussions with the province as to whether and how we can retain those funds, because I don't think we want to lose those funds. Well, at the same time, looking to how we can consult and properly engage with the community on both phases to try to find a solution that works for everybody. So I think it's a matter of not working too fast. And I know that's going to be frustrating to some, but it's going to be working smartly to try to make sure we have some community support to balance all the different interests.
Thank you, Mr. Stuart. And I will also say that the federal government sent out a notice asking for offering some grant possibilities for active transportation as well. So maybe we need to be applying for those funds for projects in some of the other areas that you heard identified by council tonight as well. Councillor Forbes, do you have a quick comment?
Just a quick comment that you've just mentioned. When we have these discussions, I hope that we can have discussions about how this is going to, if projects move forward, whatever they may be, how this is going to impact the budget. So I think that's important to consider at the same time.
Yeah, Your Worship, from a bigger standpoint, these are relatively minor impacts on the budget. So I don't think council needs to worry too much about that. We can accommodate any changes to either of these projects through the budget process.
Thank you, Mr. Stuart.
I just wouldn't want to draw on reserves to do that, and I'm concerned about we're only in the first month of the year, and we may have other amendments that are going to hit the budget. So I'm just concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, council, I see no further speakers. I think we've had a good go at these two topics tonight. They're obviously an area of interest for the community. We still have 45 people participating virtually in the meeting, and so definitely shows an interest. But at this time, I'm going to thank everybody for their participation virtually or in person. We do appreciate people taking an active interest in the community. I'll ask a member of council to please propose adjournment. Moved by Councillor Hanson, I accept. Thank you very much to everybody involved. Have yourself a great evening.
Good night.
Good night.